January 1954, Park Avenue, New York City. General Motors has just turned the Waldorf-Astoria into a stage for the Motorama. Standing on a lit turntable near the center of it all is a two-door station wagon with a Corvette nose, a fiberglass body, and a roofline so low it could pass for a sports car. The crowd doesn't yet know what to call it. They just know they definitely want one. Most concept cars die after the lights go out, disassembled, warehoused, or quietly crushed. Most station wagons die a slower death in driveways. But these 10 refuse to follow either path. They started as concepts, and they actually made it to production. One of them was bodied by Ghia in Turin, shipped to Cuba, survived Castro's revolution, and eventually sold at auction for $742,500. We'll get to that one just in a moment. Let's start the countdown. Number 10, 1958 Edsel, Bermuda. Ford spent 4 years and roughly $400 million convincing America that the Edsel would change everything. What almost nobody remembers is that the lineup included station wagons. The Bermuda was the top trim wagon, wood-grained flanks, a 361 cubic inch V8, and the Teletouch push-button transmission with gear selector buttons mounted in the steering wheel hub. That feature came directly from Ford's advanced engineering proposals of 1955 and 1956. So did the vertical horse-collar grille and the boomerang taillights. Bold ideas. The production car kept every single one. But the public still didn't want them. Ford built 2,235 Bermudas. The base two-door Roundup, 963. Donna Reed drove a Bermuda on her TV show. It was the most glamorous endorsement of the least wanted car in American history. The Edsel failed because it was too ambitious, but the next station wagon was killed for the opposite reason. An engine, it was promised, that never arrived. Number 9, 1977 to 1980, AMC Pacer Wagon. In 1971, AMC designer Richard Teague started drawing a car that broke every rule. Cab-forward layout, panoramic glass so wide it looked like a fishbowl on wheels, and at the center of the floor plan, a rotary Wankel engine, promised to AMC by General Motors. Then GM canceled their rotary program, and AMC had left with a revolutionary body but with no engine to put in it, so they crammed their existing inline-six into Teague's concept body. The result was 800 pounds heavier than planned. The coupe launched for 1975, and for 1977, they stretched the roofline backward and gave America the Pacer wagon. It outsold the coupe immediately, 37,999 wagons in 1977 alone. An American magazine said this was what the Pacer should have been from the beginning. The panoramic glass, cab-forward proportions, and rack and pinion steering all survived from Teague's 1971 concept. Wayne's World turned the Pacer into a punchline. However, the collector market turned it into a $25,000 car. AMC improvised with the engine they had, but the Buick Century Caballero started with one of the most precise visions in GM history, and a pillar count of 0. Number 8, 1957 to 1958 Buick Century Caballero. Every automaker at the 1954 Motorama was chasing the same question. What if a station wagon didn't look like a station wagon? Most of them answered with sketches, but Buick answered with a production car that had no B-pillars at all. The Caballero was a 4-door hardtop wagon, every window rolled down, nothing between them except air and chrome. Under the hood sat a 364 cubic inch nailhead V8, putting out 300 horsepower through a flight-pitch Dynaflow automatic. It cost more than Buick's own convertible, and its bodies were fabricated by the Ionia Manufacturing Company in Owasso, Michigan. The 1958 version wore 160 individual chrome squares in the Fashion Air Dynastar grille, one of the most extreme front ends of the entire jet age. Buick built 10,186 in 1957, and only 4,456 in 1958. Then the recession hit. For 1959, every Buick wagon went back to pillared construction. The dream lasted exactly 2 years. Clean examples now clear 6 figures at auction. The collector market decided what the accountants wouldn't. This car was worth keeping. Buick went bold for 2 years, but this next one went bold for 29. Number 7, 1963 to 1991 Jeep Wagoneer. In 1960, Willys Overland called industrial designer Brooks Stevens with a simple brief, replace the aging Jeep station wagon. But what Stevens sketched back wasn't a replacement. It was the whole blueprint for every luxury SUV that followed, for the next 60 years. The 1963 Wagoneer was the first 4x4 with an automatic transmission, first with independent front suspension, first with an overhead cam 6-cylinder truck engine. Every single feature came directly from Stevens' design studies. Zero compromise between concept and showroom. And that same SJ chassis, it ran from 1963 through 1991. 29 model years, essentially unchanged. The Super Wagoneer of 1966 became the original luxury 4x4, priced at nearly $6,000 when a base model cost half that. By 1984, the Grand Wagoneer name was attached, and the idea of a leather-trimmed, wood-paneled four-wheel drive wagon had already become its own market segment. Grand Wagoneers still fetch $80,000 to $150,000 today, but the concept Stevens drew in 1960 is worth considerably more because it didn't only fill a gap, but invented a category. Stevens designed the Wagoneer to last, but he designed this next model for a completely different reason: to save a dying company on a shoestring budget. Number 6, 1963 to 1966 Studebaker Wagoneer. Brooks Stevens patented a sliding rear roof panel for station wagons in 1959. The idea first debuted on his Scimitar concept at the Geneva Motor Show, built on a Chrysler chassis to demonstrate aluminum bodywork. But nobody bought the patent. 4 years later, Studebaker president Sherwood Egbert called Stevens needing a new model with effectively no tooling budget. So Stevens remembered his patent, dusted it off, and grafted the sliding roof onto the existing Lark wagon chassis. The Wagoneer's rear roof slid forward over a dropped headliner, opening the cargo area to the sky. Studebaker marketed it with photos of a refrigerator loaded upright. Movietone News ran 30 Daytona Wagoneers as mobile camera platforms, and roughly 19,000 were built across 4 model years before Studebaker closed for good in March 1966. But there was one problem: the roof leaked. Studebaker rushed in a fixed roof option just 2 months after launch, but the concept never fully escaped that one fatal flaw. And yet, 4 decades later, in 2004, GMC launched the Envoy XUV with a sliding rear roof and proudly called it a first. Studebaker had already done it 41 years earlier on a bankrupt company's leftover tooling. They were improvising with whatever parts they had left. But the next one, it didn't improvise. It started with Italy's finest coach builders and sent a single surviving car on a journey across 3 continents. Number 5, 1956, Chrysler Plainsman by Ghia transformed to the 1957 Forward Look Wagons. This is the car we mentioned in the intro, built by Ghia in Turin, finished in Palomino beige with a gold Texas Longhorn medallion on the hood and an interior upholstered in unborn calfskin. It debuted at the 1956 Chicago Auto Show as Chrysler's Idea Station wagon. Now, the Plainsman looked like pure theater, but it wasn't. 3 of its features were transplanted directly into Chrysler's all-new 1957 production wagons: the hidden spare tire tucked behind the right rear quarter panel, the rear-facing third-row observation seat, and the power retractable rear window, a feature that became a Mopar wagon staple for years afterward. Designer David E. Scott held the U.S. patent. Virgil Exner approved the proposal. Then the story takes a turn. As a Ghia-built Italian import, U.S. Customs required the car to leave the country within 18 months, so it went to Cuba in 1957. The owner died. Castro's revolution came, and somehow the car still escaped the island. It made its way to Australia, where it was converted to right-hand drive, then eventually back to California, where it was converted back. It is believed to be the only surviving concept wagon from the entire 1950s. In January 2020, it sold at Worldwide Auctioneers in Scottsdale for $742,500. The concept survived. The production features survived. The car itself, it survived everything. However, this next car influenced something even bigger than a single model year of Chrysler wagons. It influenced the entire minivan industry, starting with an idea Ford threw in the trash. Number 4, 1984 Dodge Caravan/Plymouth Voyager. In 1974, Hal Sperlich walked into Henry Ford II's office with drawings of a front-wheel drive family vehicle that fit through a standard garage door. Ford killed the project, then he fired Sperlich, and then he fired Lee Iacocca. Both men ended up at Chrysler. Sperlich brought his drawings. Iacocca brought the authority to actually approve them. The T-115 project was greenlit at the end of 1979 with a $500 million budget, funded partly by federal loan guarantees, and it finally launched in November 1983 as a 1984 model. Chrysler internally called it the Magic Wagon. The EPA officially classified it as a station wagon. It offered 42% more cargo space than a conventional wagon of similar dimensions. And its first-year sales? 209,895 units. The station wagon didn't slowly fade after that. It was erased, overnight. And Ford? Ford eventually built their own minivan, They called it the Aerostar. It was rear-wheel drive. The Caravan made the wagon obsolete by becoming one. And the next 3 cars on our list are exactly why that stings. Because GM was building concept wagons that should never have been killed. Number 3, 1964 to 1972 Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser. Inside GM's body development studio in the early 1960s, a designer named Pete Wozena had an idea most people told him wouldn't work. Raise the rear roof section of a station wagon by about 9 inches. Fill the extra height with fixed glass skylights over the second row passengers, and turn the whole rear cabin into a moving observation deck. Management actually approved it. The Vista Cruiser launched on February 4th, 1964 on an A-body intermediate chassis stretched from 115 to 120 inches. Buick got a version 2, the Sport Wagon. But the Chevelle and Pontiac Tempest wagons on the same platform, they didn't get the skylight treatment. This was Oldsmobile's showpiece alone. The raised roof design ran until 1972, and it wasn't the market that killed it. It was federal rollover safety standards. The Vista Cruiser name survived through 1977 on a flat-roof Cutlass wagon. Same badge, but a completely different car. That 70s show used a 1968 Vista Cruiser as the Foreman family car for the entire series. And if you sat in the way back as a kid, making faces at the driver behind you through that rear window, there's a solid chance it was one of these. The name survived, but the idea didn't. At least not the way Wozena originally imagined it. The station wagon number 2 on our list shares a concept with the car at number 1, and half the people chasing that car at auction don't even know this one exists. Number 2, 1955 to 1957. Pontiac Star Chief Custom Safari. When Harley Earl walked out of the 1954 Motorama, knowing his Corvette-based wagon concept had won the crowd, he didn't only call Chevrolet, he called Pontiac too. Same roof, same rear glass, same tailgate, but a different chassis, different engine, different trim level, and a name that almost nobody remembers today. The Star Chief Custom Safari launched as a mid-year model on January 31st, 1955. It rode on Pontiac's longer 122-inch chassis with a Stratostreak 287 V8 making 180 horsepower, and came with a leather interior as standard equipment. The bodywork was shared with the Nomad. Same forward-raked B-pillar, same hardtop greenhouse, but the Safari wore Pontiac chrome up front and Star Chief grade trim throughout. Pontiac built 3,760 in 1955, 4,042 in 1956, and only 1,294 in 1957. Total 2-door production across all 3 years, 9,094 cars, fewer than the Nomad, less famous, but arguably better finished. One Motorama concept producing 2 simultaneous production cars at 2 different divisions. That has almost never happened in the history of the automobile. The Nomad gets all the credit, but the Safari, it's the same car in a better suit, and they already know the car it shared a concept with. That car is number 1. Number 1, 1954. Corvette Nomad concept transformed to the 1955 to 1957 Chevrolet Bel Air Nomad. Back to where we started. January 1954. That lit turntable at the Waldorf-Astoria, a fiberglass wagon with a Corvette nose, an electrically retractable rear window, and a roofline so clean it made every other wagon in America look like a delivery truck. Harley Earl's team built 5 show cars, and the public reaction was so strong that Chevrolet ordered the design adapted for production before the Motorama tour had even ended. The 1955 Bel Air Nomad kept the forward-raked B-pillar, the ribbed chrome tailgate, and the hardtop-style greenhouse. The Corvette nose was gone. The fiberglass was gone. But the silhouette, the thing that stopped people on Park Avenue, that survived intact. Yeah. Chevrolet built 8,386 in 1955, 7,886 in 1956, and only 6,103 in 1957. Total run, approximately 22,897 cars. But the name didn't die with them. It moved to 4-door wagons from 1958 to 1961, then Chevelle-based wagons from 1968 to 1972. No other Motorama concept has ever spawned a production lineage that lasted 2 decades. A 1956 Nomad recently sold at auction for $341,000. 70 years after Harley Earl rolled it under the spotlights, the car is still winning. The station wagon never actually died. It just changed its name. The EPA classifies the Ghia EV6 as a small station wagon, but no manufacturer would dare put that word on a window sticker. The form was too practical to kill. And the name? Too uncool to keep. Every one of these 10 cars proved the same thing. The best ideas on an auto show stage are almost always killed by accountants, not by the public. The people who saw the Nomad at the Motorama wanted it immediately, and the people who sat in a Vista Cruiser's way back, they still remember it. Which of these 10 should have gone further? Let me know in the comments, and please mention if, in the next video, you want to see the concepts that never made it to production at all.